If you've been watching these tutorials in sequential order, and I realize a lot of you will have been, but I also recognize not all learners work in such a linear fashion, preferring instead to dip in and out of sections or chapters as and when they feel it useful to them. But if you have been working through the course tutorial by tutorial, then you'll remember I touched upon a technique called adjustment layers earlier. It's a function that After Effects users and Photoshop users in particular will be very familiar with when editing a photograph, and they don't want to actually adjust the base image itself. Instead, you create what's known as an adjustment layer and apply edits to this transparent or invisible layer, possibly adding contrast adjustments, etc., whatever effect you want to use. And then the editing done will then be merged down, as it were, with the layer or the layers below it. Well, that's essentially the same principle here in Premiere Pro when we employ an adjustment layer. We create one and place it above the video track and associated clip, so that whatever we do to the adjustment layer, i.e. add an effect to it, well then this will get merged with the video clip below it, and further down if more than one video track is employed, but without actually altering the clip's properties whilst we employ it. The effect will be obvious, but the layer won't be, because as I say, it's transparent. So what I'll do now is go through the process of creating an adjustment layer and apply it a few times to different examples, so you can see how effective it is and how useful when you want to save some CPU. As you'll see, because it affects whatever's below it, we only need to apply one instance of an effect to an adjustment layer and then have that effect affect multiple clips, rather than applying and reapplying the same effect multiple times across many clips. So here's what we do. As you can see, I've got a couple of different clips on our timeline for this adjustment layers tutorial, only to provide a little bit of variety. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new adjustment layer and then subsequently have whatever effect we apply to it affect what's underneath it, i.e. both of these clips. So if I come down to this button here and then roll up to our third option, adjustment layer, I'll now see this adjustment layer small dialog box. I'm going to leave all the settings as they are. They match exactly my project, so I'll OK it. And there it is. It's now been brought in as one of the assets here within the project panel. It wasn't automatically placed on the timeline. We have to do that, so I'll left click on it and drag it over and place it on video track 2. OK, now it's been brought in at the default duration, whatever you've got yours set to within Premiere Pro, usually around about 5 seconds. And this default duration is dictated by the length, the same length as whatever you've got your still images set as. Anyway, let's extend this, so I'll drag it over to the right. If I only drag it as far as here, this will of course only cover our first clip. Well, I want it to apply to both clips, so I'll drag it right to the end, and then now come over to the effects panel and choose an appropriate effect. I'll open up video effects and then come down and open up color correction. Maybe within here I want to apply this brightness and contrast effect to both of my clips equally. Well, all I would need to do is left click and drag it and drop it onto our adjustment layer. And then consequently, up in the effect controls panel, here's my brightness and contrast effect. So whatever I adjust this to, pumping up the brightness or bringing it down, or indeed altering the contrast, then you can see that not only does it apply to the first clip, but also if I move my CTI over here to the second clip, then you can see that whatever settings that we've applied with the brightness and contrast effect is now being channeled through the adjustment layer to be applied to whatever's below it. Okay, so that's one example. Now I'm just going to undo this a few times. I'll have to hit edit and undo a few times to go back to where I was. But once I'm done, let's have another example. I'll come down here and I'm staying within the same color correction folder, and I'll choose this one, Fast Color Corrector, and then this time I'll drag it over to the adjustment layer. Okay, and there it is in our effect controls. Now this is quite useful doing it this way, because if I want to set the white balance for one clip, and I know all subsequent clips were shot at the same time, then I can create a uniform white balance. So I'll grab my color picker, and I'm going to select there as what I'm going to designate to be the white part. So then now, as I move across the timeline, then you can see that whatever I've selected to be the white balance point now affects not only this first clip, but also our second clip equally. Okay, so that's an example when we've got two clips running sequentially. Let me try it a different way now. I want to try it with both clips but stacked, one on video track 1 and one on video track 2. Incidentally, this instance of the adjustment layer here on video track 2 If I want to remove it, it's not actually going to remove it from our project panel. I'll show you what I mean. If I right click on it now, I can run up and select clear, and that's now removed it from our timeline. But if we come back over to the project panel, well, of course it's still there as an asset as part of our project. Meaning, of course, we can reuse it. We don't need to create a new one. Right, let's go about stacking these two video clips. In actual fact, I don't need the audio for this example, so I'm going to unlink the audio from its associated video clip. I'll right click on it and then run up here to unlink, which now means the video and what was its embedded audio are now two separate components. So with it selected, I can hit the delete key on my keyboard to remove that one. I'll do exactly the same thing for the second clip. Right click, run up to unlink, and then select the audio only and hit delete. Okay, good. Now with this first clip, I'm going to drag it up to the video track above it, and then with our second clip, I'll drag this over so that it starts at the beginning there. So we've now got these two video clips stacked like this, which means if I come back over to my adjustment layer and place this on video track 3 this time, and I'm just going to extend it as well, so it lasts for the duration of both clips. Well now, by coming back over to effects and opening up the video effects folder, I'm going to choose a really obvious effect so we can see this. I'll open up blur and sharpen and then come down to Gaussian blur, and I'll place this on our adjustment layer. Okay, now I do need to come to the effect controls and dial in some blurriness. I'm sure that's not really a word, but anyway, it says it is there. I'll drag this to the right so that it's really obvious. Of course, with the clip below it on video track 2, that's what we see in our program monitor, and you can see it is very blurred. But remember, this adjustment layer can affect everything below it. If I toggle off the visibility of video track 2, then you can see that adjustment layer is making video track 1 with its related clip blurred by the same amount. Okay, so those are adjustment layers then, and how convenient and how useful they are, certainly when we want to apply them to multiple clips.